So there you go, the much talked about ministerial list in the words of some of our reporters there. And then yes, some of the screening did take place yesterday while the others are expected to go on today. But here to look back at what transpired and perhaps look ahead and what to expect, Honorable Eseme Ibo, former Chairman, House Committee on Media and Information, joins us this morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Very kindly. Thank you.
See you again.
Thank you. Morning. Thank
you.
You.
So we looked at this. I mean, yesterday we had a former spokesman of the Senate who was telling us his perspective about the kinds of report that had made the rounds, the build-up to all of this. He said, look, yeah, we're going to go ahead and do what we always do. But then, you know the current spokesperson in the Senate. He was in the House while you were a spokesperson. But the way the build-up went, did you expect anything different when they say it wasn't going to be business as usual? They listed how or what to expect. But what turned out yesterday, did it meet your expectations?
My expectations were strengthened by when the Senate President went on the condolence visit to the matriarch of the Owolowo dynasty. He clearly stated there that the envisaged screening is not going to be business as usual. And from that, I started thinking differently, that maybe the current Senate may have set up a performance evaluation template, which will be a novel that will include the issue of performance drive, because constitutionally, the National Assembly, as it were, they are empowered to oversight the executive. This oversight, of course, will also include issues like value for money, and of course the derivatives of governance. So I expected that template. But what I saw yesterday was business as usual, after all. Because, take for example, Senator Udodoma exhibited uncommon showcase of grasp of the issue both in public and private affairs. He also took a step further in giving in-depth analysis of the public service structure and private structure. And then one issue came up, which was very fundamental. The issue of the PIB, the Petroleum Industry Bill. And one could have expected that they would have allowed him, if not for any reason, for the benefits of those persons who do not have the grasp of the content, the intendment, and the context of the Petroleum Industry Bill. But they didn't allow him to enrich that conversation with his depth, having been a former chairman of the Presidential Committee on that same issue. And everyone was saying, take about. Maybe they were overwhelmed by his depth. They maybe because it wasn't the issue of being the former chief whip. No, but so it was still business as usual.
Are you looking at that in context of the fact that, look, they say we have our rules. If you're being a lawmaker, a senator at that, you have to just take a bow and go. So if you noticed...
If it were so, they won't you didn't even need to even start in asking Senator Udodoma the question. Being the former chief whip, the former chairman of the Senate Committee on Appropriation, and he's been there twice, ranking in all standards. So if you want to follow that precedent, it will have been the issue of introducing himself, or if he volunteers to say anything, he does so. If he doesn't, he takes a bow and go. But even starting the question, initiating the question, was setting the summary.
Which that from the Senate President?
Yes, setting the summary that, look, it's not going to be business as usual. You go through the normal session. This is how we go about it.
Yeah, but some people would say that, you know, yesterday was not a lecture session. It was to see what the abilities of some of the senators were, I beg your pardon, the ministerial nominees were. And how much of that presentation do they really bring to bear, or can they really bring to bear when they actually start government?
That's the point I'm saying, that if you have taken the trouble of initiating that, not bow and go anymore, not business as usual, you needed not have stopped Senator Udodoma from that crucial, he was ready and set.
Perhaps there were, I mean, for every rule there are always exceptions. If they say that we're not going to be doing business as usual, but this is our former colleague, we've taken two questions already.
I don't think that benefit of the doubt was allowed because he was a former colleague. I'm just thinking, I stand to be corrected, that a whole lot of people were overwhelmed by the depth of his expertise.
No, but we spoke with some of them,
I'm saying that they will have allowed him to continue to enrich, because he was enriching the conversation.
We put the same question to some of them.
He was enriching the conversation.
And they said, look, that was our rule. So the Senate President didn't know why, he just said the same. But when another question was to come forward, someone had to stand up and say, no, this is not our rule.
Well,
so
this was televised live, so it's not what...
I see your point, because it was live on television, and they should have allowed him continue on that tangent, knowing full well that that has always been the talking point in our polity when it comes to the PIB. But you know, he actually set the ball rolling. He started off the show. And do you think, apart from looking at it like an overwhelming, you know, presence with his delivery on that day, don't you think that the Senate, with all due respect, have actually started something that we haven't seen in the previous Senate?
Well, I think the only thing different there, clearly, is that well, let me not so much dwell on Udodoma. By allowing some of the nominees, like Udodoma himself, like the Dambasao, like the Fireme and all of that, it went further to throw up this issue I've always been talking about, the leadership recruitment process. Because if you had listened to a man like Audu Ogbe, in his social media and all over, people were criticizing his age and all of that, turning, you know, recycling old men and all of that. If you listen to that gentleman, Dambaswa, Audu Ogbe, Bonaya, and of course our own Udodoma, if you listen to them, you realize that in the course of reinventing the ethical integrity and performance evaluation of this country, in an attempt to build new institutions where you and I will be proud of, that will trigger prosperity by doing the right thing, that will give the benefits of governance. We need to improve our leadership recruitment process. From the depths of those gentlemen yesterday and the exposition of the expertise, it's clear that it's worth it. It's clear that we are on the path.
I'm sorry, Sulaiman. You say that it is clear that
the leadership recruitment process.
In other words, what you see are potential leaders, or they are leaders.
Well,
they are worthy to be called leaders.
Where this country is today, we are on transition, generational transition. Most of the people who were born in the 70s and the 80s have never seen the heroes of this country. They have never seen legacies. And if these men, which are of course men of yesterdays, if they are coming back to reinvent themselves and reinvent the institution, then they will transit. Well and good.
Big if.
Yeah, that is the issue of perception, which has to be properly managed. Because most of the people who were born in their time, apart from the benefits of history and the books you read, you've never seen heroes, you've never seen legacies. You only see heroes, read about heroes in every other part of Africa in the world, but definitely not in Nigeria. The currency crash, the issue of examination malpractice, the issue of assassination and robbery and all sorts took place from the 70s, promoted to the 80s.